Okay, testing mic volume 1 2. Testing mic volume 1 2. Testing. Okay, testing. Let me testing mic volume with increased volume. Okay, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Okay, that's where we will have the standard volume at for me, and we will see where everybody else lies in. Cool. How's it going, chat? The annoying part at the beginning is always setting up the audio. But alas, we always get there, one way or another. Curious if I test this out. Am I able to turn on my camera as well? I might just pause that. Hey. Let me. Yeah, we'll do it that way. Why not? Hey, how's it going? Oh, can't complain, all things considered.
Well done. Do
Just making.
I sound okay, or do I need to put on a? I've got a headphone. If that would make it better,
You
but
should be good. I'm just making sure on the stream side that everything is good.
all right. Let me try to mute everything I've got going on. My getting blown up with party invites on my Xbox.
Really?
Well, yeah.
Wait, I forgot. Xbox now has Discord integration, doesn't it?
It might. I don't know.
I think they do because PlayStation signed a deal later, like a year and a half afterwards, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, now you finally get it after Microsoft did it a year ago."
I know that Twitch does. I don't know about Discord. I wouldn't surprise me.
I'm not certain on that at all. I just because like the biggest pain in the ass of playing on PC versus console is just that you can't talk to anybody via the party systems at all. You either have to use in-game chat, which for most games is shit, or you try and use Discord. And if you're on console, 9 times out of 10, it's somebody with an earphone in their ear and then a headset over top of it.
Yeah. I seems pretty toxic most of the time in console. Like, I'm usually just in a party with the people that I'm playing with, and it used to be a lot more social, like you could meet people. But now that social element is gone. And then games that I do play a lot, like Overwatch, they have switched to having the crossover between both PC and console,
Yeah.
and you can tell who's on PC because they're typing up a storm. And like I can't type, right? Like I've got my keypad and I'm just like GG, and that's about it. That's all I can get in a pause menu, right? But it winds up just being sort of one-dimensionally toxic because you got the PC guys who are like, why can't you hit a shot? And I'm like, well, because I got thumbsticks, right? Like, you're the one in low silver with keyboard and mouse. What are you talking about? But yeah, it's sort of declined, I think. And you would think it'd get better with crossover play, but it seems like it hasn't, unless you have friends already doing it.
The one thing that I always complained about on Call of Duty's end was they took out. It used to force in-game chat. So when you played Search and Destroy in like any mode where like your death mattered and you would die and you would not respawn, they would force you to use in-game chat. So whenever everybody was dead, you could talk to the enemy team. So you'd have, say you died early on, you'd have like 2 minutes where you're just sitting there bullshitting with somebody from the other team, which was
Yeah,
great. It was a social element that involved a lot of shit talking, obviously, but you could also meet people in the time that you had to kill.
yeah.
They took that away back in like 2016, and it destroyed the social element of the game. Like you could not get that same atmosphere ever again.
Yeah, and they do it all in the name of promoting social like niceness. And all they do is, I mean, okay, you probably do destroy, the pure hate speech, but you destroy a lot of other stuff in the process.
Yeah. Well, League of Legends is now in hot, well, not really a hot mess, but like they're removing the all chat feature. So you can now only talk to people on your team, whereas previously you could type in like slash all and it would hit everybody in the game. And
Right.
people are freaking out that, and I agree with this philosophy to a certain extent. It's like you are punishing the 2% that make it bad for the general public versus the 98% that actually find it good and entertaining. Because
Yeah.
nine
Well,
times out of 10, if you're flaming
yeah.
somebody, it's on your own team.
Yeah, right? And you just kind of look like an asshole to everybody when you're doing that.
Yeah. Makes it easier to spot out the dick versus the guy who's just having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've become a lot more chill since I've started taking video games a lot less seriously.
How's everything
which
going in Methodist?
it's crazy. Everything is nuts. I think talked to a couple of people you know today. Bob Bruns,
Yep.
I remember him. Mary Kirchner, she's actually the head of the Reed School of Business now.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Dang. How's
yeah.
Mr. Bruns took over? He took over for Jerry Hawk, right?
He did. He's a new guy.
Good.
Jerry Hog's still there. I think he's mostly there to raise money. So if he calls, don't answer.
Yeah. Well, he called me 3 months ago, right around,
Oh, yeah.
and I
You
was
ask for money?
I mean, yeah, it's alumni donations. What do you expect? But
Yeah,
at the
right.
same time, it was good. I'm always surprised by his memory, that he's able to remember so many small things about people. Even like, because Emily and I invited him to our wedding, and he wasn't able to make it. But they sent out like a nice personal card, and he left like a few notes on the card that were like very specific things that he was able to recite in our conversations. Like, we started talking about some of the things they said. It's like, dude, that's impressive. I see why you got your job there and why you're going to be really good at fundraising, but like,
Yeah. He's incredibly good at that job. It looks like my computer's going to die on me if I don't plug it in. So give me a moment.
sounds good. How's it going, Paul?
Good, how are you?
Same old, same old.
Good.
Not too much changing. I'll introduce you here in a second because I just realized that I never did a formal introduction once you joined.
Oh, did we start?
No.
Oh. Oh, you meant to him. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, my bad.
Just a quick
All right.
little introduction for you. This is Paul. He's the co-host of the
Hello.
podcast, the guy that I've just been playing League with since, 2017, right around?
Yeah, around there.
Awesome. Where are you at, Paul, in the real world?
Oh, Indiana.
Indiana.
Yeah, I know would you know a Joey Horn as well?
Do I know who?
Joey Horn. He
Uh,
used to be an
you know
RA at
Horn?
Methodist, was on the basketball team.
Yeah, he's like giant, tall dude.
Yeah. I was in the same basic training and AIT class as him for the Army.
Really?
Yeah.
Joey played basketball, shaved head, really tall, nice guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Small
So
world.
small world way I know you.
That's crazy.
We
He
did.
probably even remembers me. He had a couple classes with me.
I feel like anybody that's had a class with you probably remembers you for the most part.
Well, or you have PTSD and you're repressing it. I don't know.
I consider both somewhat of a good thing at that point.
It's memorable, for better or worse. For sure.
Just gonna give it another minute before everything starts, just in case. I mean, not many people tune into like the actual live viewing of it, but in terms of VOD viewing, we get about 50 people to watch, which not bad. And then clip some of it, put it on TikTok, and that typically gets like 4 to 5K viewers.
That's awesome. So there is kind of a busy street in the background. So if my mic gets hot, just mute me if it's annoying. So,
I have to mute mine because fire trucks go by all the time, so
okay.
it's
Well,
never a worry.
There's one talking right now. So
Impressive.
classy, super classy. Yeah. In the process of building a house, and
Ooh,
the difficulty in getting windows delivered is impressive. So it's apartment life for me for the next 6 months.
that.
Well, for the last 6 months and the indefinite future, unfortunately.
Ooh.
Yeah, sucks.
How long did they give you an ETA until you're done?
Well, originally I was supposed to move in right about today, and they still don't have windows. So,
So basically, your housing situation is basically the corporate COVID situation as well. You keep saying that you're going to go back, but you just never know.
yeah, except the difference is that COVID, I think a lot of people wanted to keep going forever, but in this case, nobody wants us to keep living here forever. Or the builders want us in, because I mean, they spent all the money on the materials and they don't get paid until we're moving in. So you got a strong incentive to finish.
Yeah.
True. Oh, let me shift that back there. Okay. Let me kick this off in a second here. How's it going, Joel in chat? Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of the Crossover Podcast. As always, I'm David. To my left is Paul, your consistent co-host and TSM aficionado, which, bless his soul, he's in for a rough few weeks, apparently, if the rumors are to be true. But, more importantly, our third guest and distinguished honor is Dr. Matt Dobra. He was my professor of economics, both macro and micro, during undergrad. He most recently was recognized as Distinguished Faculty of the Year at Methodist, if I'm not mistaken. Has his doctorate and master's in economics from George Mason University, and overall just one of the best guys to talk to about anything in terms of sports, economics, and any combination of the two. So it's the perfect blend given everything going on in gaming right now. How you doing?
I'm awesome, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's great to talk to you again. It's been about 4 years as far as I recall. I'd like the world to know that you were an excellent student, and I don't think I ever kicked you out of class, even if I might have wanted to once.
I can't honestly remember doing anything in your class that would have gotten me kicked out other than watching the Masters during Masters week and not paying attention. But that was a staple for every golf kid at Methodist during that time.
That was, to me, the biggest shell shock of going to Methodist, because, like you say, no cheating, no devices and whatever in your class, and then you walk around and everybody has their phone out in front of them and they're taking the test, and I'm like, I mean, I'm not an idiot. Like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, shine off. What are you doing? It's a test. You're like, I'm watching the Masters. Like, that's supposed to be an excuse. Like, okay, fine, watch the Masters. I'm not going to fight this battle.
I mean, to be fair, like 5 other people in the class were also like, it's not like, if one person had just randomly been on their phone, sure, raises flags of cheating, but you had 5 kids all dressed almost identical to each other doing the exact same thing. It's like, okay.
Yeah, no, it's a uniform with the khakis and the polos and the Titleist hat. It's a little scary. It's very Stepford Wivesy. Well done. And I have started making, as crazy as it is, I double check the PGA calendar before I set, exam dates now. You just got to do it.
Really?
Wow.
No, I'm messing with you.
Okay, that'd be funny.
But so we have the reason why I invited Dr. Dobra on here today is because there is a specific topic that was brought up over the last 2 days in League of Legends that has to do with salary caps. This is not a new concept to any of us that follow American sports, but to those on the international side of things in Korea, in China, and also in European football, where there currently is no salary cap until next year. I believe UEFA is now proposing a salary cap with a luxury tax involved. Figured you might be the perfect person to come in and shed some light on the positives, the negatives, and just more of the macro element trends that come with this. I don't know if you want to explain from a baseline like what a salary cap is and just a little bit about it.
So it's a big question, right? Let's start with a question of why would you want to have a salary cap, right? And generally the reason you want to have a salary cap from a league perspective is that it helps create a competitive balance. So, in professional American sports, and so the New York team can't field a team of superstars where the Kansas City team really can't, right? Because New York or Kansas City money can't compete with New York money, so that's why you go about doing that. So if you can level the playing field somehow, that might create a situation where, both teams have roughly equal amounts of resources to devote to their players, and therefore both teams can get, an even chance or a reasonably even chance of competing on the same field of play, right? And you don't have to go back in time that far to see, Major League Baseball in the 90s when the Yankees would have salaries in the 220 millions and the A's would have 40 million. And like that was the whole point of Moneyball, right? Which is look at the A's and they somehow competed with the Yankees who kind of sucked in the mid 90s, right? But that was sort of what it was all about, right? Like how can you as a small budget team compete with a big budget team? Leagues generally come about or go about addressing this competitive balance in 3 predominant ways. The first, you mentioned that European sports, they don't have a salary cap, and instead they deal with a relegation and promotion system. And so what that means is that if you want to run a gigantic budget, you can run a gigantic salary budget, and that means you're more than likely going to get the best players and you're going to win a bunch of games. And if, you're Kansas City or whatever, you can't afford that, you're going to lose a bunch of games, you're going to get demoted down to the lower division. And so you wind up with sort of a naturally occurring top division teams have the most money spent, and then the division two teams spend a medium amount of money and so forth. And so you still get the competitive balance just through this sort of promotion relegation system. Is it perfect? No, because you still always have the powerhouse teams that are always going to be good. Always have this sort of bubble team at the bottom where the teams sort of bounce between the Division Two and the Division One. But that's how you generally get that sort of competitive balance. In American sports, we have two different styles of system. You've got a hard cap and a luxury cap system. Hard cap systems would be the NFL and the NHL. And in a hard cap system, there is a fixed amount that you're allowed to spend on your rostered players. If you go above that, you just take the L, right? Like you're not allowed to go above that. I can't think of a time in which a team has literally taken the loss because their salary was above that. And they do a lot of games to make sure that they're not above that so that they can continue to play. And then the alternate one, which is the one that you mentioned, is the luxury tax system, right? And a luxury tax system might look something like this. Let's say that our league, let's say it's the NBA and you got a salary cap of $100 million. Okay? If you want to spend more than $100 million, let's say that you own a team, David, and you want to spend $120 million. If you're 20 million over the cap, you have to pay an additional 20 million on, whatever you are over the cap to the league. Now in American systems, that money gets sort of reallocated to all the other teams in the league who are below the cap, get up to the cap so that they can afford to spend that money on their players. Right? So if we're in a league and we got 10 teams and half of them are above the cap, well, they're paying extra for that amount that they're over, and that gets sort of shuffled to the lower teams so that they can afford to pay their players a bit more.
Yeah.
That sort of address what the sort of purpose and how they're generally sort of carried out.
Yeah.
There's lots of finer points to them. My favorite sport is hockey, and I will read the collective bargaining agreement and find some just sort of weird stuff because, as you might expect with any sort of system, there are loopholes. And if you're good at your job and you're a general manager, you will exploit the heck out of a loophole. But when you said earlier that UEFA is thinking about instituting a salary cap, you might have noticed my eyebrows raised because that just seems weird. Like, why would you do that in a promotion relegation system? It's already sort of accomplishing that. I think if you really want to drive more competitive balance, if anything, you shrink the size of the league. So instead of having I want to say it's like the top Premier League in soccer is like 24 teams, like it's a giant lack of teams. Maybe you make it 18 or 16 so that those bubble teams that are sort of always oscillating between, they just remain standard Division Two teams, and then the oscillation is done at a different level. But I don't know. I'm not in charge.
So comparing that to League of Legends, it's really interesting because I don't know if you're familiar with how the general ecosystem works within League, but basically it is split up between different countries or different regions in a way. So the big four, the powerhouse four, are North America, Europe, Korea, and China. China has won. Well, let me explain the format beyond that. You compete domestically for 9 months out of the year, and you end up selecting anywhere between 3 to 4 teams, depending on where you have finished in recent years. The top 2 teams, which recently have been Korea and China, get 4 teams. North America and Europe both get 3. You then send those teams to an international event held every October, and those teams all face off against each other to determine the world champion. The reason why this is very controversial to a lot of people is because while China has a very soft salary cap for now, the punishment for going over the limit is not very harsh at all. Most teams will still go over without any significant impact. Korea instituting what would have been considered a hard salary cap, people fear that the top players would leave and go to America, go to Europe, or go to any other ecosystem where there is no cap. Now, the trade-off to that is that you're not going to win Worlds. No matter who you are, no matter what your name is, you leave Korea and you go to America, you can kiss your chances of winning goodbye. It's just not going to happen. There's too many other external factors going on there. But people are worried that there will be what would be considered the second coming of a Korean exodus, where players just leave in the pursuit of cash rather than winning.
That sounds a whole lot like American soccer, where there is a cap in MLS. It's low, but there's a couple of weird loopholes, right? And I think the weirdest loophole is that teams are allowed to have 3 players off the cap, which is how you can get like a David Beckham. That was long ago, but how you can get like a big name guy. I think Thierry Henry was here for a while, right? But you can get a big name guy and pay him whatever you want. But if you're, just an American dude, you want to go play overseas because that money is uncapped. So I would not be at all surprised if you saw the exodus of the great Korean players. No shock whatsoever. Now, I'm not familiar with. I will say that the first time I ever watched a League of Legends match was today in preparation for this. It was exciting. Who did I watch? Cloud9 played Team Liquid in some first round match like a couple weeks ago, maybe. Ring a bell?
Yeah, so that would have been the domestic region. So North America is qualification to Worlds.
Got it. So I watched that, right, to sort of try to figure out what's going on. And I would not be surprised if you saw a great exodus of Korean players to a uncapped system, but I'm guessing that there is some sort of import rule. So
there is. The current rule is that you are only allowed to have 2 players on your team from an area outside of the region that you are, with one exception being that North America is allowed to take Oceanic or Australian, New Zealand area players and bring them into America without penalty because their league basically fiscally collapsed and they couldn't sustain it. So basically they're saying, hey, sorry, we had to cut your league, but you can go play in America if you're good enough without causing any disruptions to the import rule or any restrictions there.
Right.
So there is that trade-off.
Yeah, so you're going to wind up skimming probably the best player off of every team. They're going to sort of scatter to the American, European, and or Chinese teams and going to wind up with, a B League, more or less. It's not going to be competitive. That sounds like perfectly reasonable theory. I'd go with that.
Which is ironically what we've had mostly, I don't know if you agree with this, Paul, for like the last 3 years or so.
Yeah, it's also that North America doesn't really have a deep enough talent pool to do anything with the Korean talent they bring in. So usually when we end up getting these good players, our teams aren't actually good enough to even beat the B League Korean teams. So the B League Korean teams will end up actually like coming out of the woodwork, and because they're the best team in their region, they end up becoming superpowers again after a few years. But I'm not sure what a salary cap will do with that, because if a good Korean team were to dominate, I feel like they'd want to get their payday in China, in America. Because also Europe, for your information, doesn't actually have a ton of money. Most European teams don't spend huge. They're starting to now, but most of them don't.
So something that it strikes me as weird about this whole conversation is why the different leagues would have a different cap. And sort of a second and follow-up question. Okay, I hear there's going to be an answer, but I have a second and follow-up question, and this going to a financial sort of analyst type like you, Dave, it might be the right way to go. Most of the time when a league sets a cap, they will set it as a share of league revenue, right? And so like the NBA, NFL, NHL, they're all right around, the player salaries are about 48 to 51% of total league revenue. But in these sports, you have teams that basically are the only thing that business does, right? So, up in New York, you got the Mets, right? And what else do the Mets sell, right? Nothing. They sell the Mets, right? So it's very clear that all the revenue is Mets revenue. But it sure looks like to me when you're looking at these pro teams, first of all, the money is not, it's not one team, it's like 9 or 10 or 11. And then a lot of them are doing a lot of side hustles on top of that, right? They're sort of capitalizing on their name brand to do things like coaching and boot camping and stuff like that, or apps and stuff like that. So how do you sort of come up with a cap number if the revenue is not clean in terms of one clean source that you can say, all right, this revenue is League of Legends and this other revenue is something else? I'd be worried as a player that they're going to manipulate the hell out of that and say, oh, no, all of this revenue is Twitch streaming for something else. It's not team revenue. You guys, we're making $14 a week off of you guys. So here's a Chick-fil-A coupon, go have fun, right? So how do you separate those revenue streams in order to actually come up with a meaningful cap? And then back to the original question is, why wouldn't you do it league-wide, not just district-wide?
So the short answer to the profit part is that nobody's making money at the moment, so there's nothing to share.
But it's revenue, not profit. That's usually where it goes.
True. In terms of revenue, I would still say it's relatively low, barring 2 or 3 examples. There are, I'd say, 3 teams in North American League of Legends that pull 98% of the revenue for the entirety of the LCS, which is the North American League. That is TSM, 100 Thieves, and Cloud9, that actually have external sources, like you said, apps. They also deal with other content creators, different areas that, while I think there is that blurry line, like you said, that it can be a little bit tough. Say you're making a video on YouTube about League of Legends, but you're not making it about the pro team. That would technically, at least in most people's minds, not be affiliated with the league itself. However, if you throw one of your pro players in there, then it's probably related to the team, or at least should be, because you're using that player's name and their namesake to profit on the views. That's kind of a gray area that nobody really touches on, and we are currently in the stage where there is little to no transparency whatsoever on both the league side, on the organization side, and on the player side. Players' salaries are not public. We do not know any of the incentive programs that go into it. We know nothing for the most part from the outside end. It is literally just potluck guessing, other than if a news reporter is able to uncover the amount. For example, Cloud9 most recently this past year signed their mid laner for a $5 million 2-year contract.
Damn.
Yeah, they're getting paid. However, his salary alone in 1 year was more than the entirety of the 10th place team. The 10th place team, all 5 players, were averaging anywhere between $75,000 to $125,000 per year. So to say that it is complicated is an understatement. As to why there's not an international cap, at least to our knowledge from the outside in, all of the regions and all of the leagues operate independently from one another. Even though they may report to the same governing body, I believe in terms of setting them up as a business, I would assume they are their own LLCs that have no legal tie necessarily to one another, other than the commitment to sending 3 teams to the bigger body that is League of Legends Esports as a whole. But none of us know the ties in that regard, and whether that could be legally enforced or not.
Yeah, I mean, because it's cross country and cross big bodies of water, I sort of get that. But and I'm thinking about Major League Baseball. They've got teams up in Canada, and somehow you've got an entity, a legal entity, like the Major League Baseball umbrella. NFL, same thing, but they don't have Canada. But it's a nonprofit, right? They don't make money. All they do is take money from some groups, give money to others. They advertise like crazy and pay the commissioner a ton of cash, right? And I think if you are doing a salary cut because what you want to do is create a competitive balance, the whole system needs be a lot more transparent than you're really letting it on, right? Because what I would really worry about if you're trying to do a salary cap without really any sort of tethering or anchoring to revenue sources in any way is all you've got is a situation where probably the owners are trying to keep salaries under control, right? And unless you have some sort of collective bargaining among the players where they say, all right, we're willing to do this salary cap, but we want a certain share of the revenue. It could very well be, though, the case that the revenue is insanely small, right? At least the revenue attributed specifically to league. And I also wonder, and again, I'm not super knowledgeable about league itself, so I'm just sort of throwing out ideas. How much of the League of Legends pro circuit is there simply to be a word of mouth for the game itself, fueling the microtransactions and the, cosmetics or whatever, and trying to get more people involved in the game, and how much of it is a genuine business enterprise?
That has been the question for a long period of time across all of esports, because esports is in this weird scenario where, unlike traditional sports, nobody owns football, nobody owns soccer. You are just this own monopolistic entity that just runs the league. That's it. With esports, there's the relationship not only between the leagues and the game itself, but the developer that's also producing the game just to generate money, period. So there's that extra element in there that it's very hard to distinguish what it is. Because as you said, for the longest time, and at least at the start of all this was a marketing expense. You throw $100,000 out there for the best team to play, and it, if it generates 100,000 people play or to watch it, then great. That's more people that might end up playing your game. But now we're slowly transitioning over the last 5 to 6 years towards this. Okay, there's prestige involved. This is a consistent thing that while there still is that marketing element to it, for example, at the World Championships last year and in 2018, Riot Games created a virtual K-pop group. Like a legitimate K-pop group that charted in Korea, sold skins in-game for the characters, but they advertised it at the World Championship in Korea. So there is that blending of the two as well, where you're still getting that marketing side alongside this big spectacle that is a sold-out arena to watch the professional game.
I was gonna add, Riot still does pay a certain amount to teams for players and coaches. I don't know the exact number. I know it was somewhere in the 50,000 range that they'll give per player to each team. So they give stipends to all the teams still for being in the leagues.
Is that still going on, or are they weaning it out? Because I know that they were...
They want to wean it out. The LS said that they were still doing it this year.
Because the original concern was that there is currently no players' union at all. And no collective bargaining agreement to be seen anywhere, nor anytime soon. With that, the thought from Riot was they would also pay, in addition to that, a portion towards the creation of a players' union. They developed the ecosystem around it, which, whether there's a debate whether that's morally correct or not, whether Riot should be the ones setting that up in the first place, because there's the power dynamic there of, okay, they're the ones that you should be protecting yourself against, yet you're letting them do it. But I know they're supposed to be weaning out that funding and completely removing their influence from it as well. Whether it will still stay standing or just topple afterwards, we don't know. But you're throwing a bunch of 18-year-old kids into the situation, so money's probably against it.
Yeah, but I mean, we do the same thing in the NBA, right? That's a bunch of 18-year-old kids you're throwing into it, and they're making, they've got their lawyers and things work, right? So if there's enough money in it, then a lawyer will gravitate towards it and do something to get a big chunk of it. And as you were talking about the way that the League of Legends, it's sort of cross-promoting in a lot of interesting ways. It strikes me as being very different from something like Call of Duty, which is trying to sell a new game every year, right? And to me, something like Call of Duty makes a whole lot more sense as an esport. Just because you've got a new product, you're selling it every year. The league itself is the thing that's promoting the game. It's a new product you're selling every year. It's a lot more approachable to just sort of pick up and watch a thing, right? So like I watched a video of League of Legends today, first one ever, and it took me about 30 minutes to, realize which team was what, right? Like, I mean, it's a complicated game, right? I mean, there's 150 characters, and they all have, you have your main fire and your alt fire and your special and your ult, and then you buy stuff, and at the end of the thing, there's like 80 billion permutations, and you got to be a player to get that. Whereas you think something like Call of Duty, like everybody is the same. You got a different skin on, and you got an alt fire, and you got a grenade, and there you go, right? It has a whole lot more in common with, soccer than you might realize, right? Like in soccer, your main fire is shoot, and your alt fire is pass, and that's it, right? Like it's a simple sort of game that anybody can watch, and so. How do you keep that going when your audience, in the case of League, has to be extremely invested, and they have to be extremely knowledgeable to keep going?
Yeah, I liken it to like a soccer versus American football comparison. American football, while still obviously more simplistic than League will ever be, there is the element of, okay, why are they stopping and starting? What can you do? What can't you do? Like, there's a lot more red tape around it that you have to learn, but even then, it's still simpler than League is. And I mean, the reason why League of Legends is to where it is now is due to the Asian markets. Korea has I would say, probably the heaviest influence of any country in terms of what esport will succeed versus what won't. If you monitor what's going on in the PC bangs in Korea, that's generally a good determinant of whether your game is going to succeed on that level or not. And League has now been on top for 7-8 years, to the point where, Faker could walk. Faker is probably the most well-known League of Legends player. He's the Michael Jordan of League. Uncontested, undisputable at this point. He could walk down the streets of Seoul, Korea, and be recognized in the same way that Tom Brady can. But you could not take the best player from North America and walk him down the street in New York City, and that nobody would bat an eye. Nobody would recognize him whatsoever.
Well, and it may simply be the case that League of Legends is not the sport for the American audience, right? Just like football is not the sport for the Korean audience. It's like soccer is not the sport for the American audience. And I don't know why. The things just sort of take off where they take off.
You would think. And yet it's still, like, correct me if I'm wrong here, Paul, League is probably still the biggest game in North America by at least three or fourfold.
Viewership, yeah. I don't know about player base.
No,
viewership.
Player base, Fortnite, and Call of Duty are probably bigger. But in terms of people actually watching the esport, it's not even close. It's amazing the smaller percentage of people that watch Call of Duty competitive or Fortnite competitive versus League competitive. That's
the huge issue, though, for North America, though, is that the player base is honestly not as big as the proportion or ratio would be for the viewership. So we aren't actually good at the game because we don't have enough people to throw at the talent pool. So we end up falling way behind the Asian countries. And Europe, to be honest. Europe has double our players, or triple?
Triple, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why America, there's a lot of push in America, too, to get rid of the import rule that exists. And a lot of the very rich owners want to get rid of it because they want to go full Yankees style, but with, outside talent. They're basically trying to buy, it's like, the argument I used last year for us was European soccer. I would say it's basically like some North American teams want to be like Paris Saint-Germain, and they just want to buy every other team's talent so that they can try to go to Worlds, which would be their UCL or whatever tournament, and they want to try to go there and win one time. So they're just going to buy every other country's talent and send one team and hope it works.
Well, and that's the difference between American baseball and Japanese baseball, right? Japanese baseball has the 3 import rule. If they wanted to get rid of that and open up their pocketbooks and pay Americans whatever, I bet you could, field a team in Tokyo that would eventually beat American teams. But by restricting your player base to just the local talent, you're going to be cutting yourself off from a huge pool of people who are very good at the game. And I think that's part of why American sports tend to be as good as they are, is that for the most part, other than soccer, we don't have import rules. And maybe soccer would be better in America if we got rid of the import rule, right? We could, you get rid of the import rule, you sort of go with salary caps along the same lines that European systems have. You maybe even move to a promotion relegation system, mimic them. You got the money here, you got the fans here, you would get similar results.
Yeah.
My question would be, to push on that a little bit, even though we don't have import rules, do you think that's all that relevant given our development systems that we have? Nobody produces American football or basketball talent like middle schools, high schools, and colleges do in America. There's nobody that can contend. If those systems weren't in place, I'd say, yeah, you might see more imports because I feel like we'd all be on a fair playing field. But is that necessarily a one-to-one comparison when we dominate the development system as well?
Would we? I hear where you're going, and I'm trying to think of the counter question, the counter rhetorical question, and it's something along the lines of, if the money was high enough in the sport, why wouldn't we also have developmental systems in other sports? Right? So you're sort of viewing it as we can get away with it because we're developing all the talent. But maybe the reason why we're developing all the talent is because the payoff to becoming a pro in America is so high. And so, I'm sort of saying, maybe your causation is reversed sort of story.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Or I could be wrong and you could be right. I'm okay with that too.
I've always thought of it as twofold. So obviously there's the money aspect of it. There's also the cultural aspect of it, where it is just, we are so ingrained at this point. Like football in the South is its own thing that you know most people in the North will never understand until you go to a Florida or Texas quad A or 5A school, and then you see what it's like, and it's like, okay, regardless of the money, like half of these players might not even go and play in college, or they might not end up professional. They're just there because our team is going to kick your team's ass and we want to be a part of that.
Yeah, no, you make 13 tackles in the state championship game in 1991 and you coast on that for life, in some parts of Texas. And that's, that's what it is. I get that. So prestige is clearly part of it. Money is almost certainly part of it too. As an economist, I tend to think that both work pretty well though. So in terms of giving people incentives, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm wondering, what do you think of if America could theoretically build a super team from other countries' players with if there was no import rule and they could win? Do you think that would be enough prestige to help with building the community later on and getting native people to want to play the game more?
If you make a big enough deal out of it, I mean, what is the old phrase? The media is the message. Whatever the media runs with becomes the thing, right? I don't really care for any of the sports that they play at the Summer Olympics. And yet the media tells it like it's a big story, and somehow I care about women's gymnastics all of a sudden. Oh my God, we need to win this because this girl who had this story, and I'm like, yes. So yeah. I mean, that's for marketing people to sort out, though, not me.
That's true.
I come from a swim family, so for the Summer Olympics, a month is just dedicated to nonstop talk about swimming. And that's it. And then you forget about it for 3 years, and then all of a sudden, Summer Olympics comes back. It's like, okay, who's going to qualifiers? Do we know what's going on? What's their times? Is it better to? It's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's how everyone is, right? That 1 month. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, women's curling in the Winter Olympics was huge. Everybody was reading about it and analyzing every match they'd watched curling their whole life. That was what they lived and breathed, was curling, right? And then it was gone because the media sold the heck out of it. So if you can sell women's curling, then you could probably sell League of Legends.
True. And that's
Somebody's
been
mad in the chat, I'm sure. But
oh
you know.
yeah. Well, Dave and I have debated all the time. I am a big believer of the Yankee system, right? You buy all the talent, send them all out
Because
there. I
your
don't care
team
if
is
they
the
can.
Yankees.
I know, and I'm saying, but people will be like, I get told a lot. Well, what if they all don't speak English? Even could you cheer for a not English speaking team? And I went, if they win, I feel like people would get behind them because as long as they're representing North America and we're the ones paying their checks, I feel like people don't care. And I think eventually people would rally behind them. But at the same time, a lot of people do say that would hurt our possible long-term growth because people think we're just going to buy outsourced talent forever. But I think eventually I think it helps though, your personal group, because eventually people realize they can get that paycheck. They just got to play at that level. And if they can get to that level and work hard enough to be there and they see what that level takes, they'll work towards it.
And to your point, I think most people aren't aware of just how well kids in China and Korea are learning English right now. I mean,
That's true.
you
Oh
listen
yeah.
to the K-pop bands. I feel like half of them are faking their bad English. I think that their English is better than any of ours, and they're just faking it for this, the Korean street cred. Just there's my conspiracy theory for the day.
I would
Probably are. Probably are.
I would not doubt that at all. It's tough because it's like the thing
love
that
how
I've
sad it
wanted
is.
the thing that I've wanted to see in North American League of Legends for the longest time is just the grassroots side of it. If we're relating it back to baseball started, you go to like the Field of Dreams and you were playing in the cornfields of Iowa and it just slowly built its way up. In the last 4 years, we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from the idea of building up the local communities. League is played in terms of like people actually going and experiencing it. 18 weeks in Los Angeles and then 4 days elsewhere, somewhere across North America, whether that's in Canada, the US, or somewhere else. There's no way that is enough to build a grassroots movement and ingrain it in the culture to the point where you can start developing out those developmental systems and you get younger people starting to buy into the system. They see it and it's like, Dad, I want to do that. If you don't push that out, then yeah, you're just going to have to continue to import players because your player base is just going to continuously shrink like we have. That's the only way that I think you can fight it at this point. But obviously COVID threw a wrench in all of that, and now we're not seeing it in that, even though esports was lucky in the sense that we got to play digitally, there still are other impacts of that.
How much do you think that it's because America doesn't have an internet cafe culture, whereas you see a lot of that overseas?
100%.
Huge part.
And I just made this point on a video earlier today. It's like my generation grew up playing Halo in kids' basements when we were in middle school. You bring over your Xbox, you hook up 4 controllers to it and you're good. You start playing and that's your next 6 hours. This generation, you would hope, is playing League, but they're not. They play Fortnite. It skipped to the next big thing. League never had that chance to take over, a bunch of middle school kids come together, you hook up 5 PCs and we're just going to crank out ranked games or smash other people all night. Like that never happened. And because we don't have the PC cafe set up like these major areas like Seoul, like Shanghai and others have, where you'll have 5 or 6 PC bangs within just a mile of each other. It's like, I don't see how we can ever compete against that.
Is that PC gaming culture versus console culture as well?
Oh my god,
Yes.
because you need at minimum $1,000 PC to run games. Other League of Legends can run on any computer. Like even the high school Chromebooks that they're giving out, League could probably run on that pretty well. Every other game in existence cannot. So that's the one thing that League has going for it, but the problem is whenever the rest of PC culture is not, it's irrelevant. So which would you rather buy if you're a parent on Christmas Day? The $300 console that you can plug into your TV right now and they play? Or the $1,000 PC, which requires time to set up. If anything goes wrong, it's a little bit iffy, and it's just overall not as user-friendly of an experience as a console.
As a parent of a 14-year-old, I identify with every single word you just said.
Very true.
It makes sense
Yeah.
why consoles are bigger in America.
Yeah. Then why wouldn't those same issues exist in Korea? I mean, they're easier here, but they're also easier in Korea.
I think
Yeah.
this is my perception. I don't know if you feel this way as well, Paul, but people don't own as many consoles or PCs over there. You'll purchase a membership pass, $30 a month, and you go play unlimited hours at this cafe. But nobody has the $200 up front to pay, or at least like the general public doesn't have that to pay up front, or it's just not worth it because you can just walk down the road, do that, and you're saving money.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry for coming on your show and asking you all the questions.
Well, that makes it interesting. And then it's also now with the China ban of 18-year-olds, we're going to have to see how that holds up because there were over 40 people, well, children cut from teams in China. So the day that the China ban came in, their developmental league had to cut 40 players that day that were all under or 17 and younger.
They were in the playoffs and had to cancel it.
Yeah, they had to cancel the whole thing because the number one team in the league didn't have a single person above 18. And all of them had to quit playing the game that day. So now it's like we're in this weird limbo of is Tencent even big enough to tell China no and basically save video games in China for kids? I mean, I doubt they are. I don't know what they're going to have to do, but it could honestly really hurt League of Legends because China's the main point of what makes League exist.
I'd argue Korea, but China's got
Well, China has the viewership. They drive numbers.
True. So to put this in context, the World Finals, let me pull up the infographic so I'm not speaking out of my ass.
They had like 80 million viewers. And the
This
rest
all
of the world.
sounds like a perfect opportunity for Paul to get his dream team of Chinese kids.
Yes.
Give him
He knows who they are now, right? There's
Well,
40 of them.
Yeah,
He's got his recruiting crew.
that's my thing. Is I'm always gonna say, if you can buy it, you can build it. No, and that's how it is. But I know Dave believes the grassroots, and I know America. We started baseball, so that's why that was our grassroots. We started American football, so obviously we're gonna be better than everybody else. But league, everybody kind of had it at the same time-ish, so. There's no grassroots you can do. Sometimes you just gotta say, well, they're better than us. Guess we'll give them a paycheck. No. And that's the American dream. That's what we've been doing since we were made.
I'm trying to find the number. The only thing that I can currently find is the peak concurrent viewership, excluding Chinese viewership, was 3.19 million. But I know in 2019 there was the infographic that they hit like 50 million concurrent, including China.
Yeah.
Like China made up over if you were to include it, China was well over like 60% of total viewership.
Yep.
That's huge.
That's why I'm worried about China, because China is our grassroots, at least to keep the game alive. So.
And the kids aren't allowed to play video games, but they're also not allowed to watch, right? Like, isn't there a time limit on watching too?
Not to the same extent, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I think
okay.
there are still restrictions, yes, but it's nowhere near as heavy as playing. So I think and the way they set up their schedule, it's fairly light. Like in North America, we cram everything into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In China and Korea, they basically say every day is fair game, and they'll put it for like 3 to 4 hours a day, but every day, so they can space it out a little bit better.
That's a crazy system, man. No video games for kids. I would have been a bored kid, man.
I would have gotten in trouble without
Yeah.
video games. I don't even want to know what I would have done.
Yeah. It's the thing that keeps 15-year-old boys out of trouble. I think you're 100% right.
I might have actually gotten good at golf had that happen.
Maybe now China will take us over in basketball. They'll just create this perfect AAU system that we just can't compete with. Take the last thing we have left.
Oh
So
my.
I know I promised to only keep you on here for 30 minutes. If you want to stay, you are by all means more than welcome to, but I don't want to make you feel like you have to stay here the
No,
entire
I'm
time.
happy to talk about. I mean, when you get into your serious League of Legends talk, I'll duck out because I can't participate. But if you got other questions, or if you got, people in the chat who want to, ask anything, I'm more than happy to stick around a little bit longer.
We
Oh.
don't currently have any questions in the chat, but if anybody has anything they want to ask, by all means, feel free to ask. As my dog tries to shove her.
I am wondering, do you think it would be possible for North America as a league to make what would it be? To make it regional? So do you think that'd be too much for a league that's this small and already running into money issues to go regional, or do you think regional could help somewhat solve the issues of bringing in money from other areas?
To clarify, by regional, he means like currently there is no New York
It's all out
Yankees.
of
It
LA.
is just TSM. Like that's your name. Any digital footprint you get is what you get. Assigning TSM to say New York or Los Angeles.
It sounds very superficial, and it might help in the same way that, I do think, for example, Overwatch League benefited by assigning city names to clubs, even though there's no reason to do so.
Yeah.
But if you're in New York, and I don't even know the name of all the teams, but they had a team, right? Like maybe
New
you
York
just feel.
Excelsior.
Yes, right. Like, and you give them the colors that match some other club. Like, maybe if you get a little bit more sort of feeling on the street for this is our club, right? This is our team. But I don't know. It does feel like if you don't have and if you do have a physical stadium, by all means, do that. But it seems like what you really have is sort of traveling, a show. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
to liken it to a circus, right? You got 8 teams, and they get on their buses, and they go to the same spot, and then they play there, right?
Yep.
So you don't need a city except for just marketing.
Yeah.
Who's been asking for the road show for a year now?
Yeah, you have been.
Been saying
And-
that for the longest time.
It'd be great to call
They
North
don't do
America
that?
a circus.
No, they stay in LA the entire time until finals, and then they travel. And they put on a 3-day event at one city, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
I don't know why you wouldn't, rent out an unused basketball arena in 12
Yep.
major cities and just go, every weekend into a different city.
So the pushback is on behalf of the players. They would feel that you are traveling too much to the point where it interferes with practice. Because currently, the way practicing in League of Legends is a little bit different than practicing in sports, because obviously there's no physical barrier to how much you can or can't play.
Well, there's ping, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh God.
Distance is matters.
That'll trigger 90% of the people that watch this on VOD if we start talking about ping.
All right, I'm here for that. Okay.
So the TLDR on that is the servers are based in Chicago. The professional league and all of the top players are all located out in California. So they're averaging about 60 ping per online game. So their normal, like, outside of scrims, outside of team practice environment is worse substantially than what I get in New York, than what Paul gets in Indiana. They get screwed out there to a certain extent, which is one of the major concerns that the region has in terms of importing players. Is like, do you want to truly come to America and play on really shitty ping anytime you're not scrimming?
Why wouldn't they set up a LAN to play these sort of tournaments?
So they do. The tournaments and the scrimmages between professional teams and even like some of the top developmental players are all played on what's called a tournament realm server, where they have like 2 ping or something like that.
Yeah.
So that problem is eliminated there. But the issue is that there's not this system where like they'll scrim for 6 hours a day. Like they'll practice with their team for 6 hours, but they'll spend 8 more additional hours playing the game and just constantly grinding, working on your mechanics. But you're practicing that in that 60 ping environment because you can't play it in the 4. That's not available to everybody. That's just for pros and scrimmaging.
So you buy a tour bus and you set up a LAN on the tour bus and you play on your 4 ping on your bus. Awesome bus.
their argument would be, oh, go ahead, Paul. I don't want to cut you off.
I was gonna say I think the big thing that would help would be if half the league, and it would obviously be huge logistical nightmare. The teams would all fight to be in Chicago, but if you could split the league in half, do half East Coast, half West Coast, you could at least have some team training facilities set up in two different sides of the country, and at least try to have teams travel, but they have a place to stay, a place to train. Maybe every team has to do what current NFL teams have to do, which is like supply a training facility for the other team, or at least a college that they can go to. But that would obviously take a ton of money, which the league already is not really has a ton of. So, and most teams have already built training facilities in LA. Most of the big teams.
Like $50-60 million
training facilities.
Yeah. Wow, okay. I'm underestimating
compound.
Cost of the land.
Yeah. TSM's was like 40 million. I don't know what 100 Thieves was.
50 million. 100 Thieves.
Yeah, 50. Wow. They're all cashing out big on these. So
yeah. Like America's the only region that has the money to do
them in China
as well.
China has crazy arenas.
China's nuts. China has legitimate stadiums for not every home team, but I think half the teams in their league. They have home arenas with like 1,000 people in I think 1,000 people in the stadium that they will sell out every time.
Awesome.
I wish we had that here, but we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize the price of a proper training facility was so high, and I wonder exactly what goes into such a thing, and I'm not going to speculate, but, I was going to think that maybe as you see collegiate esports rising in popularity, that's a sort of facility you could coordinate with, rent out for your traveling road show, where, you're up in Seattle, there's a university that has probably a decent facility. Now, there's the logistical issue of how do you get 10 teams to practice in one spot, and that does pose issues, but I still like awesome tour buses.
What was it, Echo Fox back in 2018? They were a team owned by Rick Fox. After he retired from the Lakers, he wanted to do something in gaming because his son was into it, so they bought out a League of Legends team. They had the Echo Fox private jet that would fly players to all the events like that they would go to, whether they were there or not. They'd use the Echo Fox jet to like travel around. That was like the first time that you ever saw in gaming something like that. But now everybody has car sponsorships, like Cloud9 is with BMW, TSM's with Cadillac, 100 Thieves is with Lexus. Like you could pimp out some tour buses and slap their logos on it and make it real nice.
It'd be awesome. I need one of those.
Oh, I would love it. The biggest thing that I've been arguing for a while, and Paul might get slightly annoyed that I keep saying this, but it's like the goal is profitability for the leagues themselves, because then you can finally start activating that revenue share model that allows some of the funds to be distributed back to the organizations, and then you start flushing through the cycle a little bit. The fact that we don't have a media rights deal is already problematic enough, given that we have the viewership that we have, but there's other factors that I can't talk about here that go into that. But the more important part to me is just getting the product in front of as many people as possible. The biggest attribute that sports has is that it's a cultural phenomenon in all your local areas, whether it's at a high school level. I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We had the Harrisburg City Islanders, which was the Washington Nationals AA team. And it was any Friday, Saturday night, they wouldn't sell out the stadium, but it was something that you could do, something that you could go to as like a father and son or father and daughter and just enjoy. You don't have anything like that with League of Legends or with gaming in general. So you're not helping push that cultural side of things that would normalize it and that would kind of speed up this process and allow us to activate more people within the scene, and also from a parenting perspective, normalize it, because there still is a lot of fighting when it comes to that. The most notable player in League of Legends history in Doublelift from North America, his parents kicked him out of the house at 16 or 17 when he said that he wanted to go and play pro. kicked him out. Luckily, a few people within the scene gave him a chance, and 2 years later, he was a multimillionaire. So that stigma is still around, whether the money is fully there or not. Like it is still seen as taboo by so many parents, and just in American culture as a whole, it's like, oh, you're playing video games. That's an afterthought in Korea that they don't have to worry about, but something that we need to actively change here, and that would directly help revenue if you can help solve it.
Is there the same sort of, so as I watch my 14-year-old play games, he seems way more interested in the influencer side of games than in the competitive side of games. Is that an American versus Korean phenomenon as well?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is a huge problem.
Depends on if you want to include the K-pop industry in there. If you include the K-pop industry, like there's a lot of young kids in Korea that want to go that route, which is like the influencer. Equivalent.
Yeah.
But we stink compared to them at getting kids to not play casually.
I mean, that's where the money's at.
Yeah, and casual is more fun. Like, it's just more fun here, and it's more of an American idea. It's not like America's very strict, I guess, until it really matters for money. And there's not enough money in League right now to really make people go, oh, it's more worth playing the game than being casual. I mean, you can, outside of the top, I would say, 30 players in League of Legends, you could honestly just go to school or in general figure out some sort of trade and make just as much as a League player and work less hours. So
way less hours.
Yeah, the way you describe it, it sounds like being a pro League player is a 100-hour-a-week job.
Oh yeah,
Easy.
for certain. Especially with all the driving to and from there and brand deals you got to do, any side part you have to do. And most of these players like live right next to their team facility, literally just wake up, all their meals are made by the team. Their whole day is basically structured around the team. So
you have a certain amount of hours that you have to practice outside of your team practice.
Yep.
Like I said, it's where that
streaming,
the lack of that physical barrier where your body can just tell you to stop, and like, you know, Tom Brady can only practice 3 hours. Granted, he's going to review film and do a bunch of other things besides just literally throwing the football. That barrier is even less for League, where it's like if you're not spending minimum probably like 14, 15 hours a day playing, you are falling behind North America, let alone China and Korea, who are maxing that out to the fullest. They'll go 10 or 11 months straight of that with no breaks whatsoever.
Wow.
But that's also why their burnout is 2 to 3 times the pace that it is in North America.
That's crazy. That's you know, and I think I compare that to American sports, and with baseball or basketball, kids do get that into it, right? Like, so it leads me back to, why do kids not get into esports in the same way they get into sports? And it might go back to your comment earlier, David, about just the stigma, right? Where, you know, spending 12 hours a day on a basketball court is being seen as being, you know, worth doing. But spending 12 hours on a keyboard and mouse is seen as, you know, goofing off and wasting time.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
There's so many nuances to it that it's truly impossible to narrow down, which makes it really annoying from like the community perspective of we go through this phase that we just went through this past week where North America bombs out of Worlds. So we're done. Like, the tournament's still going on, no North American team is left, and then it becomes the blame game, where 9 or 10 different reasons will be chucked around as the one sole reason why we suck, why we can't do good, whether it's the money element of it, the casual element of it, and just it becomes a shit show for a week until the next until TSM announces that they're signing X player, and then everybody forgets about it, and all of a sudden we're back on the hype train for another 11 and a half months.
Yeah, they'll flame TSM or they'll praise TSM, and that'll be it for the next few months.
I'm gonna flame TSM regardless. It's fun to hate on the Yankees.
Just know who
I,
brings in the money. No.
You signed a deal with a cryptocurrency, and that's 99% of your revenue. Congrats.
That would be 90% of the league's revenue. Thank you very much.
And how many trophies do you have? How many trophies do you have? As
They
a
have the
result of
most.
in the last 5 years, the same amount as we do. 1.
They have the most in the league, though.
Yeah, if we're counting pre 2018.
People act like this is the problem with video games right here. He's seeing it right now. The 2018's 3 years ago, pal. Like, come on. 3 years is not old. It's not like they're dead. They've been dead for years. The Yankees haven't won since like the mid 2000s, right? More than likely.
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah, and you're acting like TSM is old. TSM won a year ago.
You won more recently than the Penguins won. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, they're not some dead franchise. They won last year.
yeah, but what's the turnover on these guys? Like, how long do guys stay in the league?
Huge. No, they rarely stay in. Unless you're a top dog, you maybe can last 2 or 3 years.
It's a whole new team.
Yeah. Well, TSM is on their what? They're about to do another 4-man roster change almost.
Yeah, so out of their
4 out of 5
lineup,
players.
they change like 60% of it every year.
Yeah. It's
But
very rare for TSM to keep.
You are one of the few teams that can get away with it because you have enough fans of the organization to handle that. Unlike regular sports, where Pittsburgh Steelers fans will travel anywhere, or Cowboys fans will travel anywhere. You know, there might be a lesser amount of Penguins fans, but there's still Pittsburgh Penguins fans. There's more fans of individual players than there are teams in gaming. So, you know, your Marc-Andre Fleury's, your Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, like, they are more popular than the Penguins themselves by a wide margin in gaming.
Right. So
a weird
I've been to a number of Washington Capitals games that had more Penguins fans than Caps fans. Just to throw that out there, but I think that's yeah, I agree too. It's remarkable though. Like, why is it a cult of personality as opposed to a value in the team? And it might go back to your point from earlier, which is maybe we just need to slap a city name on these guys. Right, because I have no affinity to, C9. Like, I like the letter and the number. I don't care about them in conjunction with one another. But if they're the, North Carolina C9, I'm all right. Go C9, my boys.
I've been pushing that for a while because I think at this point, any new fans that come in through digital means or digital sources are naturally going to gravitate towards the top 3. They're all going to become TSM, 100 Thieves, or Cloud9 fans just because those are the names that you recognize. If I were to say Golden Guardians to you, would you have any clue who they are? Exactly, because when you looked up League of Legends, the first thing that came up was Cloud9. And that's always going to be the case. Like, those teams are always going to dominate. So how do you counteract that? Well, you invest in the local areas. You give New York a team. You give Texas a team, North Carolina a team, Florida a team. And even though they might not be popular now, 5 years from now is hopefully they host events in their areas, meet and greet. You get to know the players, maybe not the players because they might change too often, but at least the organization, the management, and everything else. Maybe you can develop that sense of camaraderie that exists in regular sports. I'm one of the weird ones that ended up becoming a Minnesota Vikings fan in a Pittsburgh family, but I'm very much an anomaly compared to most other sports fans.
That just sucks. But it's important to know they have to. It just stinks because you lost out on a Super Bowl. Like, you could have watched the team win a Super Bowl, but in your lifetime. I've seen that.
We technically did. They're still my AFC team, and our entire basement is Pittsburgh themed. So whether I like it or not, Pittsburgh is still my secondary team.
Yeah, but I think the important thing about the region part is that they have to be at least within like 500 miles of whatever region they plan on representing. Because if you're not even close to the region you're representing and you're just slapping regions on these teams in LA, I feel like I I would not care at all. I mean, I won't care at all because I already have a team, so I'll bandwagon to whatever location I have to with TSM. But in general, if they were like, "Oh man, the Indianapolis Golden Guardians," I'd be like, "Okay, like they're in LA. I can't go downtown and watch them anytime soon." If they're in Chicago, I could at least be like, "Oh, it's maybe a 2.5 hour drive. I could check out my local, whatever that means, team." But I just feel like if it's not decently regionally based, it's
How do they do it in Overwatch League, right? I mean, they put team names on them.
Okay,
yeah.
so
And then they were all
Overwatch,
slotted away.
yeah, Overwatch is a little bit complicated. So originally,
Well,
it
a failure. more
yeah,
than anything.
that's a whole. So it started off where it was your local model where teams would travel to this person's stadium and play them there. That was the design. However, in the first season, what they ended up doing was everybody just played out of LA, but it gave a year to where the organizations developed a bunch of like fan events in the local areas. You built up the community so that in the second year, then they could start traveling and they would actually have fans to go to. And it mostly worked. The issue was at the same time, the game started dying. Like,
Yeah.
and not just like League of Legends, we have less people than Korea, like legitimately just dying. And when that happened, they revised the model to the point where they did the traveling roadshow. So they visit each city at least once a year, and it actually worked, all things considered. Like, at least being in New York City, there are a lot of New York Excelsior fans here. Even though Overwatch is still not a popular game, I know a lot of people that will show up, and they've sold out ballrooms every single time they've been here, even whenever the Overwatch League died out like 3 years in. Like, they still sell it well. However, other areas didn't. They were never able to get to that model where it's like, okay, New York has home and away games. Like, they ended up just sticking with the roadshow model because they couldn't feasibly make it work otherwise.
Why did Overwatch fail?
The game itself failed. People stopped playing the game.
Yeah.
Even in Korea, it just fell off. And then you just stopped having as much interest. You had teams buying in for $60 million a slot per city with no revenue model or no projected revenues whatsoever. They got big name deals for like Coca-Cola, Toyota, basically all the owners of these teams like Robert Kraft, for example, just kind of lumped in some of the sponsors that they also had with other teams, and they were able to negotiate sweetheart deals and a bunch of stuff like that. And then eventually, whenever viewership dropped and there wasn't as much interest and they weren't delivering on social metrics that they had to give, the system just started crumbling. And it's still ongoing now, but like the framework for its collapse is already in place.
And Riot kind of cucked them.
That too.
Like when Riot started franchising and Overwatch was taking bids, Riot would tell some teams that were kind of on the edge of getting into LCS that they wouldn't give them a team if they bought an Overwatch team.
Oh, wow.
People picked League of Legends over Overwatch in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So there was one team that didn't Immortals, and they're now back in League of Legends. So it's an interesting thing that happens. And it was very controversial at the time, right? It was seen as a bad guy.
Yeah.
That and Blizzard also just doesn't help anybody. If something starts dying, Blizzard lets it die.
And Blizzard's not done very well press-wise in the last.
No.
That's a whole different thing. But I mean, it seemed like they were doing well. I mean, I even watched a couple Overwatch League games on, I want to say like Disney. Like,
Disney and
Yep.
ABC had it.
yeah, I mean, that's impressive for a league to get on big-time TV. So, I've always wondered why it fell apart.
So when I was at Viacom CBS, I had access to all the Nielsen data, and I decided we were slow on a random Tuesday, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in and look at every single esports event that's ever been on TV and just pull all the numbers just for the hell of it. I don't know whether I was allowed to do that or not, but nevertheless, I have the information now, and we're 2 years removed.
Email it to me.
Oh no, I have no problem saying it. The number's low, and it actually came out publicly like 9 months after this happened. Your normal primetime show on television will pull about like anywhere between like a for an audience 24 to 50, adults 24 to 54 will pull anywhere between like a 1.0 to like Bachelorette and Bachelor pulling in like a 11 or 12 and upwards.
And each number is 1 million screens. Is that about right?
Basically, yeah. They pulled in 0.2 for like the peak event, which, you know, not bad technically, but relative to sports standards was astronomically low.
It'll get you canceled.
Yeah. Nobody wanted. Why would you put that on TV when you could fill in anything else that'll get a 0.3?
Yeah. Syndicated
SpongeBob
Cheers
packet.
reruns. Got it.
Yeah.
Good old television. That's what, there was a whole drama of whether we wanted gaming to be on TV for the longest time. And I think people have finally given up on that for the most part.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the wrong medium for it.
It absolutely is.
It's the wrong audience for it. You know?
Everything's digital nowadays. At least
Oh,
on the
also-
gaming side.
Overwatch was also very hard to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you think League is hard to watch, Overwatch was even harder because it wasn't top down. It was a first person shooter with League of Legends abilities. So you were trying to watch from a third person perspective, like League of Legends abilities going on, and that you just can't see anything.
It was
like,
it was the
it
EDM
was
rave every game.
Yeah, it was brutal to watch, even for somebody who plays like every game that comes out. I was like, couldn't even tell you what they're trying to do here. It's like, good, more power to them. I hope blue team beats red team, but I don't know who's winning until it says victory.
Oh, yeah. All right. I identify. Yeah.
Yeah, but in League, I can at least kind of tell, and Call of Duty, I can tell what they're going for because I get it.
I will still argue to this day the best spectator game in the world is Counter-Strike. Such a simple concept. 5 people, 5 versus 5, plant the bomb and let it explode or kill everybody on the other team. And it was the graphics are perfect in terms of just watching it. And they always had this mode where you'd be watching it first person. So you would always be watching it from the perspective of whoever the player was. But you could see the outlines of the enemy through walls. And only we could see that. The players couldn't. But it kind of helped you see when a big moment was coming. One of the most famous clips in all of gaming was one guy kind of jumping up with a sniper and just no-scoping 3 people. But you saw them lining up for like 15 seconds prior to this. It's like, oh my God, could this happen? Could this happen? And then he jumps up, hits it, and everybody just goes nuts. So there's that anticipation building towards it the entire time.
Yeah, it has the advantage of being a simple concept. And I think that helps build a game where a casual can get hooked into it and know what's going on pretty damn fast and then get invested in it. So
the biggest downfall of that game, it's terrorist versus counter-terrorist. So it sounds stupid, but try getting, parents that are even just a little bit fickle. They hear on their TV, terrorist win. What? What did they just say? Yeah, the instant turn off. They tried showing that at Buffalo Wild Wings for a while, and it didn't.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, terrorism winning was not popular, Smooch.
It goes over great in America. Let me tell you what.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah, but you can change it to red team, blue team pretty easy, right?
Nope.
They never did.
No.
Valve
They just doubled down and were like, nope.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Valve does, the developer of that game gives 0 shits about it at all.
Oh yeah.
Like, they don't care. Like, it's just there. They average like 200,000 to 300,000 people playing it per month, like monthly active concurrent users or something like that. I forget what the metric is. Like, it's not a small amount, but it's just like they put no resources into it. It's just one of the most diehard fan bases you'll ever
None of their
see in your life.
games. They let all their games die, and their games survive just through sheer will. I don't know how.
They're the NASCAR fans of gaming.
Yeah, they're like the
They're
opposite
always
of
gonna-
Blizzard.
Oh, but there's some games that are just timeless, bro. Like people still play Team Fortress 2. From what I understand, like I'm a big, hockey game player. People still have leagues built around EA Sports NHL 2004. Because that was the year that the game was the best. And they still play leagues on that, right? So if it's a game that's good, it'll live like a really long life.
Oh my god, how about we not? Somebody in chat put Rocket League was even on MSNBC, I think, or some form of network a couple of years back. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was actually on Rocket League was on a combination of Disney XD, NBC, and one other network for their their setup is weird. I think they have like 2 world championships a year or something like that. And it was the one that sold out the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey that was on TV, which arguably had like one of the best moments of all time in Rocket League's history, advertised on or shown on television. Yet it still didn't pull great numbers. Hate to spoil that for you.
Also to note, the CS:GO today had 770,000 peak players. So
Today?
yeah, just today,
How many?
770,000.
Hold on.
Very, very big still.
And
Regardless.
people want to say gaming is niche. Okay.
Oh, it's only niche because it's not making enough money yet. Prove it. The games make money. It's just esports isn't. Once esports makes money, people accept it. Money talks.
Bullshit walks.
I can say that. I can say money talks, and I have the least of any credentials in this room. No, I just know it works.
You army grunt. Enjoy your low pay and decent benefits.
Gosh dang it.
That PTSD in 15 years better be worth it.
No, my friend. Crypto will save us all. Shiba.
Oh god, he's bringing up crypto with the econ professor. This is gonna be great. Quick tangent.
Oh no.
What's your thoughts on crypto, just so we can put Paul in place?
Oh no.
It's just the whole NFT thing, the non-fungible whatever's collectibles are the same thing that crypto always was. It's just something that has value because people think it has value.
Yep.
And as soon as people think it doesn't have value, then you've got digital beanie babies, and enjoy those.
So far, my motto with crypto is it's great for me, not for thee.
Well,
Because
long as
I
you're
make
not-
money with it, but it's not going to make money for other people forever.
well, yeah, but as long as you're not the last person to realize that it's not worth something, then you're fine.
That's the whole goal, basically.
My concern with crypto more than anything else is that government's going to try to get in there and start regulating it.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
And
that's
once
the
they start
greatest-
regulating it, it's going to be crap.
Well, the
and-
greatest fear is that it'll get regulated before I can get out and get my taxes done.
Well, and it's going to be regulated probably sooner than you think. That's actually, there were provisions in the Build Back Better infrastructure plan that involved the regulation of crypto. So the extent to which it would happen, I don't know, because I didn't read the 2,000-page document, neither did your elected official, but whatever. I'm not paid to. But that having been said, the move to regulate crypto is not as far away as you think.
I'd never watched a Senate vote before until crypto was being voted on, and I went, well, I might watch this one. I was like, I kind of care now. I was like, never even paid attention to the government until I started trading. And then I was
That was me whenever our healthcare was going to be strict, because I was still on my mom's plan during grad school whenever the John McCain thumbs down vote went through. I remember staying up till 3 a.m. to watch that vote. It was like, I really don't want to get kicked off my mom's insurance. I really don't want to have to pay for this. Please, somebody just do it. And I stayed up for that, and I was like, oh shit, the thumbs down. Why is this entertaining? This shouldn't be entertaining, but why is it entertaining?
Well, it's sad that politics has become a sport. It really has.
True.
And now you have a team, and then maybe it's the blue team or maybe it's the red team, to go back to the story you've been, the illusion you've been going with. But we're really at red team versus blue team, and blue team can do no wrong or red team can do no wrong. And if you're an Astros fan, they didn't cheat. And if you're a Patriots fan, then Bill Belichick is a saint, right? But at the end of the day, they're all assholes.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
If anybody if anybody watching this wants a great show to watch on that general philosophy, go watch the show Red versus Blue. It has nothing to do with politics. It's purely a Halo mockumentary kind of drama, but it exactly lays out that philosophy that neither side ultimately matters at the end.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Red versus Blue?
I've seen it advertised on Netflix, and I haven't hit the play button.
Wait, is it on Netflix now?
What? Well, it was on one of. I've got like all the streaming services, so.
I might go back and rewatch this. Holy shit.
I don't know. Season 1 is a little tough.
Season 1 is definitely a little bit tough, but by the time you get to like season 5, season 6, it's good.
Yeah.
You gotta figure, season 1 was made by 3 guys that had nothing but like USB plug-in mics and were just like moving their analog sticks up and down in the Halo game while recording it to try and film this. It was nothing but dry humor and like the most gamer meta crap you can ever see in your life. And then all of a sudden they get 4 million views on each of these videos, and it's like, oh, maybe we now have some money to invest in it.
An interesting endorsement, but somehow that sounds intriguing.
If you go in and watch it, it is like one of the weirdest things you'll ever see in your life for like the first few seasons.
Very funny. And their sustainability, genuinely better than in a league right now. Dang you.
You're really gonna crush my feelings at every chance that you can goddamn get. Really?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't even mentioned Speaking yet.
To fill you in, Speaka is the jungler for TSM.
Greatest MVP jungler, might I add.
Oh my god, shut the hell up.
Yeah, most valuable player.
And he did make it the Worlds, correct?
Not this year. He will next year.
You keep hoping. He's a one of the youngest players that we have in North American League of Legends. Phenomenal player. That's probably
knows how to speak Chinese. And will leave us for China eventually.
If his teams continue to suck in North America, he will not hesitate to pull the trigger and just go to China.
Yeah.
And I will laugh my ass off the day that he leaves TSM for the Chinese money. Paul is gonna cry like a baby back bitch.
I watch China already. You know I'll watch every single game.
Yeah, but that makes beating TSM even easier. That's the thing.
I'll go watching TSM for Speak Up. That goes back to our personality.
My point. My point.
I'm kidding.
Are you?
Yes, because I am one of the most loyal people of TSM. I've been watching since the jump. 2014? That's a long time. According to you, that's light years in your world of League of Legends.
Hey, 2014, I was sitting in economics class watching the Masters, so thank you. Thank you for throwing it back to that.
Also,
I think that sounds about right, yeah.
You're North Carolina? You're from there? Are you a UNC fan?
I am not. I am in North Carolina. I am not of North Carolina. I remember the first day at work, I wore a powder blue shirt, and I got yelled at by the Duke fans and loved on by the UNC fans.
Yep.
Like, it's a blue shirt. What the fuck?
Huge North Carolina fan.
I am not from here, so if I didn't go to the school, I don't care.
That's fair. That's fair. That's genuinely, that's true.
I am trying to remember for the life of me now. There's a professor at Methodist that I forget what class he teaches, but he came in he comes in the first day, I think, of every semester. I don't know if he still does it, but he wears a shirt that has a squirrel with the upside down cross, like with a satanic cross on it, holding a butcher knife.
Okay. There's
I
a few
forget who it
people
was.
that could be.
Oh god, why can I not remember his name? He's one of my other favorite professors because he just like everything was like general like philosophy. Like he always like he would just ask you why, and constantly like peg your questions down until like you didn't have an answer, and then like push you further.
Was he a history professor or philosophy professor?
I want to say history. I
Could have
think
been Carl. Carl Dyke.
yes, that was it. Yep.
That sounds like the sort of bullshit he would do.
Did you know do you know how intimidating that is to walk in and your professor's just wearing a squirrel with a freaking butcher knife and a satanic cross? That's intimidating as shit.
Really?
Hilarious, but intimidating.
So what should I do if I want to intimidate the students? Like, how should I walk in?
Tell them there is no curve. Instant panic amongst everybody. Because I remember the way you graded. You tell them that there's no curve, they're gonna panic.
Oh, there was such a gigantic curve on my test too. It was amazing.
Ah,
It's ridiculous.
What I didn't realize, because prior to taking your class, that was an exception and not the rule. Like curves were never like that for any class I ever took. And then I spent 1 year at NYU, and everything was curved like that. The lowest grade you could possibly get was like a C. Like nobody was failing grad school. It's just literally impossible. So
That's how Grassroots works, yeah.
yeah, it was like, what the hell? Like this is a whole different world.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, part of it is if you're just a lazy professor and you don't want to fail people, and some days I'm that guy. And some days it's, look, I am trying to write a test where everybody will find something in it hard. How do you write a test that's hard to the smartest kid in the room and the not smartest kid in the room, so I don't piss anyone off, right? Well, you got to have a lot of range in there. And so if I write a test with 50 questions on it and I design it so that everybody gets something between a 35 and a 50, that's hard to do. So instead I write one that the scores are going to be between like a 10 and a 50. And then I just curve the shit out of it.
I will say it made test taking a little bit easier to a certain extent. The pressure was off going into the exams, and you felt more encouraged to actually sit and think through a question rather than just sitting there and having that minute-long existential crisis of, okay, is it B or C, and this is the difference between Dean's List or not.
Well, when you took my class, that was way early in my career before people realized, like the word got out that I curved everything, and I would play it like I didn't. And I would just turn back grades and I'd say, do the math, and they'd figure it out, and everyone would freak out. And I'd say, now here's how you translate this into the grade in the book. And then there's this sort of colossal, because you remember, like there's a ridiculous formula, right? Like, and I made a big production of it. Do you remember the big production of it? And just sitting there freaking out, like, how do I have a -3 right now? Oh shit, I thought I at least got a D-, right? And now I'm at a negative number.
I remember there was one girl that just broke down crying when she saw her number initially. She had a heart attack, and then she realized that she got an A, and she wasted like 10 minutes crying over this.
Oh
That brings me such joy. I mean, evil Schadenfreude joy, but joy nonetheless.
You got to take the wins where you can get them.
Yeah, right? And if I'm going to be there for, 45 hours in front of you guys, I need to find some amusement for myself. And that's where it is. It's right there, that little sliver of torture.
Paul, have I convinced you to go to Methodist for that education that the GI Bill is going to pay for you?
Yeah. Oh, really?
They're mostly nice. I'm just the outlier.
Well, I'll go. I'll just kind of goof around, even though I have to go inside of the state of Indiana, sadly.
Really?
National Guard. Yeah.
Okay. You're shit out of luck then. Sorry.
Hopefully, I can find Methodist Indiana version.
No, school ain't that big. I actually heard that 295 finally finished.
It's been okay, yeah. So 295 to get from 95 to where Methodist is, that got done when I got there, so that was before you.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, they built it all the way around the city, so you can go through all the nice parts of town.
There,
Nice.
there was so basically, I'm assuming you know what I-95 is, Paul. Like the interstate that goes from Maine. Wait, really, you don't?
No.
Wow, you inland people are sheltered. Jesus Christ.
What do you mean? What do you want me to do?
Dude, it's the highway that goes from Maine to Florida, all the way down to Miami.
I guess I need to like travel more. I don't know.
I've
can't
never
just,
been
like,
to
yell at my
prior to
parents
going
to
to
get
California.
richer.
I knew that Highway 1 was a thing.
I've been to Florida. I've been to North Carolina. I've even been to what's that one place? That Martha's Vineyard, the one everyone loves. But I can confidently say when I traveled to all of them, I didn't really spend that much time on the drive or flight in looking at the highway numbers and going, oh man, that's I-95. This is going to help me one day.
You know, you're making me seem weird here for knowing my directions fairly well as a kid.
No, I'm saying you're weird for thinking a kid in Indiana would know.
Here's some fun data for you. The highways that end in 0, they go east-west, and from north to south, 90 all the way down to 10. And the ones that end in 5 go north-south. And they go from 5 on the west coast all the way over to 95 on the east coast.
Huh.
Wait, I thought that was standard driver's ed. I thought everybody had to know that.
No, that's red light, go, pause. Oh.
Yeah,
I
know
that
65.
That was on my driver's license test. I remember that.
Oh, well, I'm going to be honest with you. My dad and I had an interesting relationship for my driving test. He looked at me and said, "You're going to take it today." And I went, "Sure." And then when we got to the waiting room, he handed me the book to study for it. And then I walked in. That was how we did it.
Hey, that speaks hella good on you that you're a good test taker. You can look at that for 40 minutes and pass it.
I can guess. That's about it.
C's are for degrees.
Yeah. Welcome to the Army life, baby. No. Can you guess enough to save this nation? Sure. No.
The terrorists win, buddy.
You better hope none of the ROTC from Methodist sees this. Half of them will probably laugh. Half of them will get pissed off.
Oh yeah, they would all. There's a lot of Army people would be like, "You can't. You need to work harder. You need to take more pride." And I'd just be like, "Oh, I do. Love the Army. Hardest worker out there."
Is that why you're going into finance? Okay.
What do you mean? I just need to know how to do tax things, to be honest, at this point. I'm kidding.
I'm a CPA and I don't know how to do tax. That's no brag. Like, congrats. You can fill out a 1040 easy on TurboTax. That's the extent of my knowledge as well.
Oh, well, I just need somebody's help. If anybody out there knows a way to file it quickly and efficiently before what we have been told is about to happen to crypto, I could really use your help. No.
Are you sitting on a 4 or 5 figure sum to bring in yet? Okay, so it's a 5 figure. Okay.
Sure.
You're trying. I get you're trying to hide your money, Paul. I know.
Yeah.
Just don't be dumb. Well,
too late for that.
We are an hour and a half in. I will just say this about Worlds for those that tuned in and wanted to hear anything about it. It's 3 LCK teams and an LPL team. You do the math. Korea's winning it. Congrats. Whether it's T1 or Dam1. Woo, fun.
No, I'll give you all the dirty info. Dam1's gonna win. They're gonna be SKT. Or T1, my bad. And then this will blow your mind. EDG is gonna beat them. Or not Dam1. They're gonna beat Gen G. Yep.
I mean, that's my prediction. I have EDG beating Gen G. I have Dam1 beating T1, and then Dam1 winning Worlds for the second straight year.
Yep, there we go.
Boom.
It's like Legends.
That's your Worlds chat, people. That's all you need to know. Worlds is pretty much over. North America's not in it, so it's irrelevant now anyways.
Not true. Not true.
Hey,
Well,
if you believe half the people on Reddit, that's the
oh
case.
my gosh. They just don't like good league. It's not my fault the Asians do it better. I'll wake up to watch.
Yeah, you're on Central Time Zone. You're waking up at 7. That's nothing. Try moving out to California and waking up at 3 a.m. Then I'd be impressed.
I'm Eastern.
Oh,
I
so
wake up
you're
at
waking
8.
up at 8. What do you mean? You're just getting up and going to work, and you're acting like it's anything impressive. Shit.
It is.
That's
I don't. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna
Probably
say
half.
that. On screen.
There's at least one kid in Dr. Dobra's 8 a.m. class that's probably got it on their laptop.
Mm-hmm. And they're
Yeah,
not going to get in
probably.
trouble if they're watching that. But if it was the Masters, no way.
Wow, you wouldn't let them watch the league tournament?
Yeah, they can watch that, just not the Masters. That's my
Oh,
rule.
okay. I like that rule because I mean these kids
Oh,
need
the
to be
shine
watching
off
the
rule.
show.
I'm making it up right now. It'll go in my syllabus next year.
That's fine. I just need a picture receipt of that. That way I can brag that I was influential in Methodist culture in some capacity.
Oh yeah, I'll make it happen. We'll see if the dean notices.
Yeah.
That's my
Fine.
debt for now until 10 years from now. I can finally build the fucking PC cafe on
Gosh.
campus that I want to do. That's my goal. Make enough money to the point where I can have my name on the building that is like the Methodist University Esports Club. Have like PlayStations in there. Have like a bunch of PCs for like an entire team. Like build it all out. NC State already has it. Even Campbell has it, which I know that doesn't mean anything to you, Paul, but for those of us in the golf world, Campbell and Methodist were probably the two that you ended up deciding between if you wanted to go in the state of North Carolina. So yeah, if they can get it, why the hell doesn't Methodist have it?
Did you play on the Methodist golf team?
Okay, so this is a complicated question. No, I didn't play on the golf team. But the thing about Methodist is that there are 200 kids that are all 15 handicap or below golfers that are all trying to become PGA golf professionals. In reality, if you come in with a class of about 60 or 70, probably only about 50% of that at most are actually graduating in the PGM program. Maybe even less are actually, even less than that, probably about 50% of that class in general are graduating. But then probably about like 30 to 40% are graduating with PGM. And then you go work in the golf industry. In terms of, there's only 5 guys on the actual team. And then obviously like 7 or 8 backups as well. But I mean, out of 200 people that are all equivalent skill golfers, no, the odds of you making the team were slim to none. And I broke a driver over that. So I can tell you, no, I was not on the golf team.
I'm sorry. That's sad. But at least you gave it your best shot.
That's a competitive team to make. It really is. I mean, and they win
Yeah.
national tournaments every 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
I mean, it's a good team. So I would not feel shame in, just missing the cut, which I'm sure you did. You were probably number 6. Just go with that one.
No. Although I can say, and this, first and foremost, to the 3 girls that graduated my Methodist class, Alex, Paloma, and Megan, I apologize if you ever hear this. I am sorry. My class was single-handedly responsible for the temporary destruction of the female golf team at Methodist. Because prior to us coming in, we had won like 16 or 17 straight NCAA championships. And then my class brought in 3 golfers, none of which made the travel team, I don't think. And it dipped for like 3 years. Like there was a recruiting lull in the women's program for a bit until it bounced back like my senior year. And then I think they won the year that I would have been like a super senior, but we were all in our 7-month internships was the year that we ended up winning another female championship.
We won just this last year.
Yeah, so I know it's rebounded since, but we brought the end to the streak.
Yeah,
Wow.
and men won 2 years ago, I think, maybe 3.
Men also won it would have been my senior year because my RA, whenever I first came in, Charlie Manis.
I remember him.
Yeah, he was in the golf program, quit the golf program his junior year to just do nothing but play. And his sole goal was to make, he would go to his classes, that was it, and he'd go golf. But he stopped doing PGM, he stopped doing everything else but just playing and practicing. And
He was my advisee. I don't know about the going to class part.
Oh, yeah. But he I thought it was nuts. I didn't like. He's by all means he was a decent guy with like a decent
Was.
friend, but I did not think he would get to that caliber. To his credit, he was the 5th guy on the team that they won the national championship.
Wow.
He earned his way there and was able to do it, and for that I respect the hell out of him for that. You know, whether his grades suffered or not, it's a whole different story. I don't know, but
I can't say. I'll get fired if I do.
yeah,
He was a good dude. He was an econ major, so I have to love him.
Oh yeah, I forgot he was an econ major.
Yeah.
Dang. What a run by him.
Yeah. It's good. Played well. But yeah, so anyway, you mentioned about the esports. I had a couple of students who were very interested in starting an esports club, so they did. I am the faculty advisor. However, no shit. The two who were like super into it, they graduated. And they were doing all sorts of cool stuff. Like they would bring PCs to a lounge and they would hook it up and play Overwatch. They would organize like Pokemon Go hunts and they would go downtown and just go around and do that sort of stuff. They would bring DSs into the student union and hook them up to the TVs in there, and they would have Mario Kart tournaments on Friday afternoons. So they were doing a lot of fun stuff, but COVID hit, and the two kids who were just pushing super hard graduated, and the new guy is just not that into it. So it's student clubs require students to push it. Is I can't push it. Like I can't say, hey, come play video games. I mean, I could, but it wouldn't go very far.
So I started a similar thing my senior year. We never got it to be an official club, but I had one of the resident directors help me with it because he was a big League of Legends guy at the time, and I wasn't into League of Legends at that. Kyle, not Beeman, is that his name? I don't know if he's still there or not, but
Not ringing a bell, but
he helped me out. We had 9 guys that played League of Legends. We almost had enough for like a full 5v5 like in-house team match, and then we had 6 of us that played Counter-Strike. We were on the verge of setting up like a friendly scrimmage against Campbell, and long story short, like I pushed it as much as I could and left one guy to hopefully take the reins, and apparently it didn't work. But yeah, that I'm glad that it still took off even afterwards. I'm glad somebody did something with it because I feel like it's a great way, regardless of whether you're competing or not. It's just a great activity for college kids to have on like a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, or even like a Friday night if they're not going to go out and party.
yeah, no, and we were doing fun things. I mean, there was what did we do? We got Blizzard to give us some stuff. We did like a Hearthstone tournament on campus. It was pretty fun, right? I brought my kid in and let him play Hearthstone, and now he's hooked on that too somehow. He's hooked on any game. But yeah, we were doing fun stuff. It's just you need the coordinating drive, and I think they left it in the hands of a kid who's just not as excited about it, right? I mean, actually, on my Reddit, not my Reddit, this is Discord, right? There's a channel, and it's just been dormant for like 6 months, maybe even longer than that. So.
Dang.
Sad. Yeah.
Hopefully it picks back up though.
Someone will decide. Someone will look at the list of clubs and say, "Oh, there's this club, and why is no one doing it?" And then we'll play games again.
I'm curious, have they gotten Matt Pat to come to campus yet?
No. Although apparently he lives like half a mile from my house that I just sold. But no, his mother-in-law
Yeah.
switched universities. So, yeah, I was sad about that. We shouldn't have let her go. She was amazing. You remember Dr. Palisek.
Yep.
Yeah, she went on to.
Do you know who Matt Pat is?
No.
Have you ever seen The Game Theorist on YouTube? Movie theorist. He basically does like a bunch of like he was the guy that like broke down how much like a gem in Zelda would be worth in real life equivalent value. Like he would like do that type of content. They have like 18 million subscribers on one of their channels alone.
Yeah, they have 3 channels, I think. And then I think they're doing work for like when YouTube decided that they wanted to have like YouTube Red, I guess.
Yep.
My understanding was that he was one of the 4 or 5 content makers that they went to do exclusive YouTube Red stuff. From what I know, he had it. Well, he didn't. His wife had their kid,
Yep.
and then COVID hit, and then they've sort of decided to sort of move away from LA back to North Carolina and do North Carolina.
Wow.
I haven't talked to him in a while. I've never talked to him, but I know
Yeah.
his mother-in-law, good friend of mine.
It's incredible.
And they're apparently doing really well. I've seen pictures of the baby on Facebook for what it's worth.
It's interesting. It used to be just him for the longest time. Like he would be like the face of everything. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I forget his wife's name. Not is it Rachel? Oh, Stephanie. Yeah.
Yeah.
She really started getting involved with it, and the crowd that they had like really took a liking to her, and they've just become like this family. Like both of them will be involved all over the place, and like they've got a really good thing going for them long term because they're now in with YouTube as well. They work with a lot of the analytics of the monetization side of YouTube as well, so they'll help out a lot of creators in that regard. So they have more than just the content production side as well.
Right. And I think to sort of add on to that, she was always behind the camera.
Yeah.
I think it was sort of moving her in front of the camera because my understanding is that they dated in college. They met each other at Duke, and she was like a theater major and was just sort of doing nothing, and then started making cool videos and became a superstar. And I think she was I want to say accounting major or something like that would be my guess.
He mentioned it on his like they did a full like a day, not a day in their life, but like the Draw My Life sketch. Like they went through and did that, and he explained everything. I think she was some sort of business.
She was, yeah. Yeah, he was, theater.
Yeah, which makes sense as to why he's good in front of the camera.
Yeah. Yeah, but I've watched a fair bit of their stuff. It's amusing. When he starts doing economics, I get a little cringy, but it's fine.
I'm sure that like you sit there and it's like, I don't know about that one.
There's a lot of just folk economics out there of what sounds good, but it just doesn't pass the sniff test of basic econ 101. So
You gotta do what brings in clicks. Screw the facts, right?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. There's a lot of that actually.
Not surprised. But I don't want to keep you guys on for too much longer. I know it's been a lot longer than initially intended, but I don't know. You know me. I can sit here and talk for hours. I never give a shit.
Well, it has been fun. I'm getting Xbox invites blown up my computer right now, so I just had to tell somebody to leave me alone.
Well, I'll let you guys to it. Any final words that you guys want to say before I close everything off here? You say anything about Speaka? God damn it, Paul.
I end every episode with it. I do love you, Speaka. I'm waiting for the day that Dave meets. I don't know, that Dave gets us in with TSM so that I can give Speaka a signed jersey. One of these days. One of these days.
If I ever meet him, I'm intentionally not going to tell you for 9 months. And then look back and be like, oh yeah, I met him like 9 months ago. That was like a signed jersey.
No, I'm gonna be your camera guy when you.
Do you think making TikTok content takes more than just a person holding up their own phone? Okay.
No, I just mean I'll figure it out. I don't want to say this out loud. Yeah, I'll say it in DMs. Yeah, love you, Speaka.
Any final words, Dr. Dobra?
I watched my first League of Legends game today, so I'm going to say Team Liquid for life for no apparent reason.
Oh,
no. Can you at least admit that Speaka is the best North American jungler we have? He is the MVP.
He's the only North American jungler I know, so clearly he is the best.
Thank you. Somebody on this show gets it.
I just have to trigger David at this point.
Goodness, because this goon thinks that he stinks.
I didn't say that he stinks. I'm just saying he didn't deserve the he got the MVP vote by default. Even though I voted for him myself, he got it by
I was
default.
about to say it. I was like, you called him the best one.
I don't want to admit it, okay? I really don't. I look, it's gonna break my heart when I inevitably have to cheer for TSM at some point in time because I will eventually.
I can't wait for that Welcome Broken Blade video.
Okay, we're ending this before we get to. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a go and be sure to drop a comment on the video. Like, I will have clips up on YouTube, and hope you all have a great evening. Adios, or day whenever you're watching this. See ya.
Love you speaking.
You got that in just as I cut off the